let's sow some seeds. Since I was sowing some of my January seeds, it might be interesting to just go over some of it with you guys. I'm not going to just sit here and sow seeds for half an hour because not everyone's into that. But while I'm sowing my seeds, I thought if there's something interesting, I'll let you guys know about it, because you might be seeing different trays and pots and all that kind of thing being used. So I'll show you what I'm using at the minute and I'll tell you why, and if there's anything interesting, I'll mention it. So obviously then, the first thing I need is my seed sowing compost. Now I am going to do a video on my seed sowing compost and how I make it, so that's coming up. It's part of the pre-season training for gardeners season. But just so you know, while I'm doing this today, all you need to know is I don't buy seed sowing mixes from the garden centres and things. Lots of people do, and you do you, but I don't. I don't think they're necessary in the slightest. So I just make my own and use that. Much cheapness. So I'm doing that just now. So I'll get some. That was easy. Yeah, I've already made this big box of it because, you know, I wanted to do a video for you guys. So, you know, and just look at how lovely that is. You can actually be sowing your onion sets into your little module trays and keeping them in the greenhouse, polytunnel, etc. under cover just now, and they will grow on nicely. And when you can get things planted outside, you've got them started and you can just transplant them out. So you've got your module tray filled with your lovely compost. All you want to do now is, it's really complicated, pointy end up, and you just put your sets into the compost. And the beauty with onion sets is you can see it, so you don't really need to label it. So basically, this is a module tray. They come in lots of different sizes, but basically it's just lots and lots of individual little compartments. So you can sow your seeds in all these individual little compartments, label them up, and you can have lots and lots of different types of seeds in this one tray. The idea of these is that you start your seeds off and it's just a tiny little amount of space that they need, and as your seed grows you can move them on into bigger trays or move them on into bigger environments, whether it's bigger module trays, pots, whatever. And you do that until it's time for them to go into the final home. Now, there's lots of debate about whether or not this is necessary and why people do it. To be honest, I don't think I've got all the answers. I've done both. I've done the sow in the tiny little module trays and pot them on up different sizes, and I've just sown them into the big pots to start with. But when you think about it, when you do this outside, you're just sowing directly into the huge big bit of ground, so you're not doing all this tiny potting on. But this is part of the whole thing about when you're a gardener and you're doing things this way, you're wanting to provide the perfect environment and experience, because you want to get as many of your little seeds to germinate and as many of your little seedlings to grow as is possible. And that's the thing, when even the way nature does things and you just put seeds out into the general environment outside, there's going to be a percentage that just don't take because things aren't perfect for them. And what we're doing is we're trying to make it as perfect as possible to get the most amount to take as we can. So I use these for things like my peppers, my tomatoes, my aubergines, things where I only want to have 1 or 2 little seeds in each little cell, and I can deal with them all as little individual plants. It's much easier to do that with the larger seeds that you can handle and see. Not so easy to do with little tiny things like petunias and foxgloves and all of that. Now, a little note for you on germination times. Tomatoes only take about a fortnight to germinate at most, if they have the right conditions. Peppers and chilies, however, can take a lot longer, so don't get disheartened. My King of the North took 4 weeks to germinate last year. Okay, so don't be disheartened. Now, same again, I'm going to go for 1 seed in each little module. Now, tomato-wise, I only actually want 1 of each tomato plant because, again, space. So I'm only sowing 3 of that variety. And if all 3 come up, then someone else will get the plants. And again, label, label, label. Same idea, but you'll see these ones are much, much deeper, okay? This is something called a root trainer. It's exactly the same idea. It's those little module trays with all the little gaps, but it's just much deeper. You use this for plants that need a long root run. Here in the UK, most definitely, these get used for things like sweet peas. People use these a lot for sweet peas. And you get different types. I used to have some that were probably about a third the size of this. And it had a cover, a propagator cover went on the top, and they snapped open and stuff. And they were really good, but they were really, really flimsy, horrible plastic. And they were 10 years old and they all fell apart last year. So I've replaced them with these much... This stuff is all really heavy duty, so it'll outlast me, to be honest. This will get passed on to someone else when I'm not gardening anymore, when I'm too old and decrepit to garden anymore. So yeah, so same idea, but it's a root trainer. Now, I use these for things like beetroot and carrots that I let grow on in here for a long time, so they've got a nice long root run before I then go and put them out in the beds. So that's my trick for beetroots and carrots. However, I'm also growing beetroot just for its leaves. I don't need a big long root run for that. I treat it like a salad crop. So this is the next thing. I mentioned salad crops. So I've found these sorts of trays are great for seeds that you're going to just be, they call it broadcasting, but when you sprinkle lots of the seeds over an area. Trays are brilliant for that rather than the little modules. Because I washed everything, it's all stuck together. So trays come in different sizes as well, and I find these ones are great for little salad crops. So the type of thing we refer to as cut and come again, where you'll have lots of little salad crops grown in here and you'll just snip over the top with scissors, and you'll do that a few times just to take the leaves. So I'm going to do this for the beetroot that I'm using for the leaves for salad crops. And I'll also use these for my lamb's lettuce and that type of thing, my mizuna, that kind of thing. So I'll do that just now. We'll get some lamb's lettuce going on one of these. When you're filling these with your seed mix, don't fill it all the way to the top. Leave a good up to like the first knuckle of your finger or so, maybe 1 centimetre. Leave that space on top. So I can give this a good old water before I put any seeds in it, because once you put your seeds in, you don't want to risk kind of moving them around and disturbing them. So give that water with a watering can. But you can also, and you'll see me do this in other videos, you can actually have this tray with water in it, and you can have these little trays all sitting in advance ready to go in that water, and it will soak the water up from the bottom. No matter which way you do it, here's a top tip. Whatever you're using to water it, it's heavy. Don't go and get cold water from your outdoor tap to do this, because it's really cold, and you'll put your seeds into that and it'll take you ages to warm up again for them to germinate, because they don't want the cold. So either fill your watering can and keep it in your greenhouse, or add a little bit of warmer water to your watering can, and that will then warm up that soil for sowing your seeds. So I've now got a nice tray of wet soil that I can get sown in. I got asked the other day about how I organise my seeds. Nothing fancy. All I do generally is I have them organised by type. So I'll have like a little box that's got all my tomatoes in it, that kind of thing. Kate reorganised this for me because I just did a massive clean out of my seeds. And at the minute I've got them organised by wombos. I don't know if you get the Wombles anywhere else. It's a TV show I grew up with as a kid, but I have them organised in overground, underground, wombling free, no, and then herbs, greenhouse, that type of thing. So yeah, I don't have a lot of seeds at the minute, so it's really easy for me to organise, but it means that I know what ones are grown where by this, but you just do what suits you. So I'm going to do some of the Bertolli then for the leaves. So I'm treating this like a salad crop. So if I was growing this for beetroot, I would put one individual seed into each of those little modules, which is easy to do when the seeds are this big. There is an interesting thing, these are not actually seeds. These are little clusters of seeds stuck together, so that you've got more chance that at least one will take. Interesting fact. Right, but instead, because this is salad, I do the broadcast thing. So I sprinkle it on the surface. Now, I do try my best to make sure they're all spaced about and not just all clumped together in one space. But yeah, the idea is it's the leaves I want when they're small. So then the next thing, so I already said to you guys, we left space on top. Now I'm going to put soil on top of this. But what I'm going to do that is use my little handy dandy sieve, because then I've less chance of knocking seeds out all over the place and accidentally getting seeds into my compost and things. Happens every year. There was a whole incident one year with foxgloves. Basically, all of my neighbours got foxgloves, which I said were sunflowers, because I got foxglove seeds in the compost by accident. But all you're doing is putting a little layer of compost on top of your seeds. And of course, always label. Now what I've done is I've labelled this as beetroot leaves, so that I know this is the one that's just leaves. I don't have to water it because I've watered the compost already. Now I just put it out on one of my shelves where it can just do its wee thing. Now there are some salad crops where I don't broadcast like that. Mostly it's about the bigger lettuce varieties, the ones that are little individual, kind of decent sized plants. Those I actually do individually, still in a seed tray, but individually. So I'll do that with some of the lamb's lettuce to show you just now. Make sure before you start, give all of your seed sowing, seed trays, everything you're using, make sure it's had a good clean to make sure there's nothing from last year left on there. There's no dirty soil, and you'll reduce the chances of pathogens and funguses and things moving on. This one, I'm going to put my lamb's lettuce in here. Now, lamb's lettuce is quite a small seed, so you've got to be quite careful with this. If you can, you want to be able to sow very sparingly, because it reduces the need for pricking out later. And then we're just going to put a little bit of compost over the top, a little fine dusting of compost to cover those seeds. So you can see, you get to the point where you've got all these little plants in your tray and you can prick them out and pot them on. Slightly bigger, much bigger again. So again, exactly the same idea. Lots of individual spaces for your plants, but much, much bigger. So this is the equivalent of if you had lots of little, say, tiny pots. So you know the whole little pots and then you go up all the pot sizes. This is the equivalent, but it's just in a big tray that's all together. Like I say, you do you. So I hope that was a really useful little random bonus midweek video. It's just some of the things you guys ask me. Now, there are more coming up like this, but we're going to get properly into all the useful info before you start sowing your seeds. So it's going to be a whole series of these called pre-season training for gardeners, and I'm going to take you through how I make my seed sowing compost, and in that I'll be talking about what you're looking for, why I don't buy the seed starting mixes from the shops, how I sterilise my compost. I'm going to take you through something called a seed viability test. It's good if you've got old seeds and you want to check if they're still going to work or not. And I'm also going to take you through how to read seed packets and catalogues to get the best start for your seeds, because there's a lot of info on there that's really, really good and important, and people don't always know what all the little symbols and stuff mean. So I'm going to take you through all of that. That is what is all coming up in the next few weeks, as well as all my usual rambly stuff. But if you want more of this type of stuff, because it's horrible weather, it's raining and it's cold and you're staying indoors, then try out this video. This is me at this time last year, and I was getting my peppers going. Now remember guys, if you like this content, thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of this fabby stuff, and I'll see you next time. See ya!